the powers that be rather deal with a few corporations so they can manipulate each other more effectively instead of dealing with the noise of a whole lot of small companies. They don't really care about small business, and if they can make everybody else drones, my philosophy always been is they want to bring back the feudal system again.
400% returns on your investment sound far-fetched, but investors have figured out how to do it. Investors in Dogecoin saw their shares spike 400% in a single week. Doge started out as a joke, but now it's a top 10 digital currency worth $40 billion. Non-fungible tokens, record sale, Beeple, 69 million. Whoever would have thought? And with the changes in the economy and everything hitting record prices, it's vital that you find out about trends like these before the general public does. I was able to profit myself because I learned to trade through Trade Genius Academy on the crypto side. I took part in various courses, personal coaching, chat rooms, signals trading tool. That's where I look for price signals in cryptocurrency from Bob Kudla at TradeGeniusAcademy.com, who also offers other signature trading tools for stocks, exchange-traded funds, binary options, and commodities. All you need is an internet connection to get started. Interact with Trade Genius community, fellow traders, and certified Trade Genius trades, alongside professionals who generate revenue for themselves in the stock market every single day. Live buy and sell alerts text to your phone, built for both new and experienced traders. TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Click on the link in the description box below and use the promo code MAY for 40% off all non-bundled items. And now on with the interview. And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today I'm with Bob Kudla, TradeLikeAGenius.com. As always, we try to get together each month to discuss our different specialties, either in the financial markets with Bob and myself with the Grand Solar Minimum, and these different effects that are now showing themselves, because whether you're in the economy, history, solar activity, agriculture, they're all dovetailing into, there's massive changes going on, and it's just all of us sharing information or trying to explain things as a wider picture together. So each of our conversations every month is about trying to foreshadow maybe what's coming in the next month based on what's happening and the sort of a greater scheme of things. Now, this program today, just as we were talking before, I'm going to name this one The Narrative of Shortages, because wherever you look across the landscape, every other news article is shortage of something, record high price of this, yet those on the street really haven't earned much more other than basic income handouts. So at some point, the rubber's going to meet the road, and with the new mandates saying you're going to have to go back to work, you're not going to get the unemployment anymore. When people really go back to work and they start working for their money again, and they have to pay out of pocket, they're going to see these huge spikes in price really start to affect them. And I'm wondering, as we get toward that era of the next month or two, how it's going to affect society when people go, no, I'm not going to pay double for that. I was getting free money from the government, but now I got to work hard and get the money, and now it's double price. No, hold on. So where we're looking, we're going to discuss today, the exports from the United States and agriculture, the fuel shortages I'm seeing here in the east part of the U.S. I can describe that for you a little bit. But Bob, thanks for joining me. And I'm sure today's program, with all that's been happening in this last month, is really going to be interesting, especially how you and I both see moving out into the future a little bit. And by the way, can you tell us where you are right now and what we're going to watch over the next hour, or a half hour, as the light glows behind you?
The background behind me is actually the mountain of Mauna Kea, so we should be seeing the sunrise as we're as we're talking. Hopefully not the sunrise, but we'll see the dawn breaking. But good topic. It's been the topic du jour for us over at Trade Genius, because it presents opportunity for us, amidst tragedy. I can't stop these things, but I can certainly figure out how to profit from them. And what we're seeing here is really interesting. It really all started last September, when I think, the fix was probably in. The Fed said they're not going to raise interest rates. I mean, they said basically it's going to be a cold day in hell before they raise interest rates, and the market started to take off. and inflation expectations started to, what they call the real rate of inflation started to take off with that. And then when Biden got elected, they just know that the Democrats are going to do this spray and pray with the money, and all of a sudden the whole commodity complex started to lift off and lift higher. And so we have all the industrial metals are at at least decade highs. Precious metals are as subdued as they are. Gold already hit an all-time high, and so and now it's breaking back out of its consolidation, and silver is actually positive for the last 12 months. So I think we all expected more from that, and I think that's coming, because I'm going to talk about something that happened last week that I think is a game changer for silver. But let's just back up here in terms of looking at these different commodities. So the Bitcoin miners realized that if they could hold their tokens or coins off market versus dumping them into Coinbase, they can be a more profitable company. And I think other people started to notice that. And then all of a sudden in uranium, and if I could pound the table on one metal, it's going to be uranium. It has basically the buyers have to buy, and the sellers have a shortage. And so I think you're going to see prices just like, and I referenced 2002 to 2008 on uranium. You'll see 200 to 800% moves in a lot of the miners. So you got uranium going, and then now you have this conflict we're having in the with ongoing conflict with Russia. Well, they control the platinum and palladium markets, and then you have Russia basically saying, hey, we're putting export controls on our wheat. You have Argentina saying we're going to put export controls on our wheat. You have Russia saying we're going to put export controls on our gasoline. You have now the Taiwanese and the Greeks saying, hey, we're not bringing our ships back online. In copper, you have basically prices were so subdued for so long, there was no new mines. And then with the virus hitting, they shut a lot of these mines down, and now you have a copper shortage. And I can go on and on and on and on. But the one that really intrigued me was last week when Mexico shut down the silver mines. And I think it was as much political as anything else, because they're like, hey, everybody else is getting theirs. Why aren't we getting ours? Why are the bankers stealing from us? And silver took a pop. And so I think you have this whole thing where now people are like, hey, we can hold this stuff off market. When we can borrow money at basically 0%, big players, and we can hold stuff off market, and we're getting 5, 10, 12, 15% monthly moves. It's a no-brainer. It's like you being able to buy a house, on a corner where that they're going to be putting in a major employment center, right? And you can borrow at 0%. You can wait it out a year or two, and your house will double or triple or quadruple. That's what this is like with the commodities, because everybody knows who's a player, knows how long it takes to bring on new supply, and the demand is artificial because they're just holding off market. Basically, Goldman Sachs used to do this. It used to be the exclusive playground of the bankers. Well, now countries are doing it, and I think this is going to have some staying power, Dave.
I'd agree. And this whole term transitory inflation or transitory hyperinflation that our Fed in the US is willing to deal and then blow a huge, sledgehammer to your toe to the American people, going, we're going to cause inflation so all of your prices rise up, and there's nothing you can do about it. So when you're having the federal level saying we're going to raise your prices on purpose to help the corporations, wait, hold on a second. And that's supposed to be by the people, for the people? I don't think so. But these shortages continue. And wherever you look in agriculture, since, you're out in California, I did quite a lengthy showing of the drought map and where it was and which areas in agriculture were going to be affected. Some areas are down 95% in their allocated water. And we're talking about some of the major growing areas that produce almost all the veg and produce for the US are going to be going 95% reduction. What's that going to do for the prices? Is that going to push us down to Mexico to then get produce and bring it up this direction here? And then also the shipping pallets, the wooden crates on the bottom that you stack things on. They're saying there's a shortage in that because the lumber prices are so high that people are recycling those and they're storing them somehow. The same weird excuses for all the containers going offline and Hapgood Lloyd needing to order 150,000 new containers. There's just a lot of shenanigans going on with the shipping and logistics. The price rises that are for you and I that are in the whole agricultural sphere, whether it's the export restrictions or the new tariffs for inbound, or just the actual physical medium to get it from point A to point B. It seems that there's some problem that's showing. And now, that used to be the realm of business news, but now it's the realm of CNN front page, BBC front page. Now it's all over in the UK. They're going to be stopping all the rail traffic because there's cracks in the tracks, and they're going to be reducing rail traffic for the next 3 to 6 weeks. And everywhere you look, there's some kind of weirdness in transportation, logistics, and it's as if the inflation's going to play into the delays, and the delays play into the inflation, and all of this spirals up into the full explanation of why everything's rising so fast in price, when nobody's really looking at the sun, and nobody's looking at the amount of volcanic ash in the air, and nobody's talking why in Tennessee it's still fall temperatures and we're almost in the middle of May, and it's in the low 40s in the evening where you're putting coats on to go outside.
Hello, it's 63 degrees right now.
Yeah,
here in Mauna Kea, in Waikoloa at the ocean. So it's chilly. It's about, you can't see it, but there's about 10-degree breeze blowing at my back. I mean, it's marvelous. I'm not complaining about this weather, but you don't usually wear long sleeve shirts here in late spring, early summer in Hawaii. The powers that be rather deal with a few corporations so they can manipulate each other more effectively, instead of dealing with the noise of a whole lot of small companies. They don't really care about small business, and if they can make everybody else drones, my philosophy always been is they want to bring back the feudal system again. Basically, the overlords, you have the sycophants, you have the merchant class, you have the protection class, and then everybody else. I mean, look, the dudes from the World Economic Forum have all but said it. They don't like all this. They don't like all the hoi polloi out there trying to have their say. They want to have their say. And I ultimately think it's not going to work for them, but that's what they're trying. And I think governments like inflation because basically it's a free tax, and you can blame somebody else for the tax. I don't think they thought that so many people would just stay home from work and just collect money. I saw that 1.8 million job postings, that people are desperate for employees, yet the government is becoming a competitor to these corporations, these small businesses to get workers. And I think it was a backhanded way of trying to get the minimum wage up. But what they're going to find is that out here in Hawaii, that just some places just aren't opening, or they're limiting their capacity to the number of employees they have, or limiting their menu, or they're automating, and they're changing their business practices. And I think it's going to bite them in the ass eventually. So, yeah, I think all this is contrived, Dave. Look at lumber, right? I guess across the border in Canada, you just have these mountains, these lumber mountains sitting up there that aren't coming across. Why? Nobody can tell us. They can't bring it in the U.S. to do that because there's laws against it, but they sure are doing it other places. The uranium miners are actually mining and putting it off to the side. One of the stocks that we own called Quad U, that's UU, they're selling their rare earths that they're mining, but they're holding uranium off the market. And so basically they're creating this environment where, it's just like home selling. At some point in time, prices will get so high that the volume will drop off. That's when it's going to end. But I don't think we're anywhere close. You look at copper. Copper's been in a multi-decade rectangle. It's breaking through that. It's probably gonna double the range it had last decade, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Joe Biden wants a Green New Deal. Well, guess what? They're gonna pay up for the copper. And guess what? That's gonna kill the housing markets. These guys don't understand the levers. They just think we'll just dictate this and all will be good. Oh, we haven't even talked about chip shortages. From out of Taiwan, the automotive industry. 1 out of every 4 jobs is indirectly or directly related to car manufacturing. Germany's even more. And so there's some big problems. And, let's talk China. China's in a world of hurt. They can't produce enough food right now. I don't know if you and I talked about this. We talk about this so much time, but the farmers here are feeding their animals wheat instead of corn because it's more profitable for them to send the corn over to China so they can feed their pigs.
Yeah, and if you notice, the background's a tiny bit different. Internet went down in Hawaii, so we're trying to re-record this now and continue with our conversation. Right where we dropped off, Bob was talking about unemployment and the amount of money. And I had read some reports where people now, with everything they're getting from unemployment to the physical stimulus and all the different bonuses and tiers of income replacement that are in different states, some states, people are making up $17, $18 an hour clear after tax. Now, think about that. If you were making $7 an hour and you had to pay tax and go to some of these jobs, and suddenly you're making 17, 18 clear on the tax, would you go back to work? I know I probably wouldn't either. But think about that for a second. So somebody who's making, let's say, $10 an hour, they're used to making that wage. Now they're getting 18. They suddenly have a lot more money in the pocket. Now, I know some people would run out and spend it on new TVs and XYZ. But if you did have a few extra dollars, Bob, because, we're talking about pennies turning into hundreds or thousands of dollars in market returns over near, short, and long term, depending if it's crypto or if it's traditional markets, whatever you see out there, because your crystal ball into that arena of finance is quite deep. It's almost you have a crystal ball within a crystal ball, the way you guys are laser sighting and niching down in on things there. So even if you had a few extra dollars, what would you be thinking right now? Obviously, you're not going to be doing rhodium options and sort of thing with a few extra dollars, but is there a possibility with somebody who has a little bit of extra money to then use that to try to, put something in the game to build their own wealth?
Yeah, look, if somebody wants to stick money in and let it sit for the next 12 to 18 months, I would absolutely tell them to buy any of the uranium stocks. Uranium's in a really interesting situation right now because there's basically inelastic supply and there's inelastic demand, meaning that there's not enough supply and demand is voracious. And they'll buy it at any price because they're trying to refuel the nuclear power plants for the next decade. And I think there's 53 new nuke plants since the last refueling binge that we had in the early part of this century. 2002 to 2008 saw the price of CCJ go up, I think, 8x. And I think you're going to see those kind of moves again. Now, we've been in these guys now for the last, I guess we're coming on 7 months now. And we have doubles and triples, but there's still doubles and triples left in these names. And in some cases, maybe 400%. So yeah, I would tell people uranium for sure. And look, and silver's been a laggard. Although silver's gone up. I hate when people say, "Oh, silver's not making." People making money in silver, but I think the expectation was we'd go back to what happened in 2011, where basically silver blew the top off, and we're going to get there. So people can put money to use with silver, and I think that'd be a good place to go. Where you don't want to be going, there's a transition going. Since the time you and I fritzed on our interview, the stock market has taken a pretty good tumble. And it's because we're at a point now where those stocks that have been carrying the market can no longer lead the market. They're just too overvalued. They're worried now about the Biden administration's policies. They think that, maybe the best is behind us. But what we're really seeing is rotation. So you're going to rotate out of tech, you're going to rotate into commodities. And when I mean commodities, I'm talking steel, energy, platinum, palladium, uranium, gold, silver, copper, fertilizer. I don't think I missed anything. And really ironic thing, Dave, near and dear to both of our hearts is that the fertilizer stocks have been holding up extremely well during all this. Mosaic didn't even have a down day this week. And I think that's because, again, in elastic supply, inelastic demand, farmers got to dump that stuff on their fields, and there's not enough fertilizer being mined out of Canada and out of Kazakhstan. So those are the areas I think are tremendous opportunities for people. And I think the lockdowns are ending.
Well, I want to dovetail onto the fertilizer comments. So with the pipeline outage here, the diesel fuel has come into a shorter supply than the gasoline shortage has, or the gasoline. When we first talked a couple of days ago, Tennessee stations had abundant supplies of fuel, but just when I drove up to Knoxville yesterday, I stopped in a country station out here that usually always have fuel. Like, these countryside areas are the last things to experience disturbances, but all the pumps had the bags on them. So there's a knock on here where the diesel jumped up to $3.99, and the farmers, because it frosted last night, it's expected to frost tonight again, which is extremely rare in May. Farmers are putting their planting on hold at the moment yet again, knowing that the frost is coming in. And some of them were looking at the fuel price rises as a blessing in disguise, because they were going to plant. But since the prices jumped and this unexpected frost is sweeping down on another kind of the last Arctic blast, hopefully of the season, you really have to wonder, if it's 41 degrees in East Tennessee in the evening at frost level here, what's going to happen with places further north where it's even colder? What's been planted in the ground already? And if they do have to replant and get those plants to grow extremely quick to get them back up to some maturation so we could harvest in the normal times, how much extra potash is that going to require? How much extra fertilizer? How much are they really going to have to juice the plants this year to get them to grow? Because I'm really shaking my head where covering plants in the middle of May due to frost. This is an exceptional time we're in right now. And if you look at the global temperature analysis, it seems to be dropping. Even on the super hot models like Climate Reanalyzer, they're still showing global temperature drops for the second month in a row, actually third, if you count an even 0.0 as a drop. But things just aren't panning out on the sides. And, you're looking at late snows and late frosts all across Europe, and early onset of winter, extreme brutal cold down in Australia with incredible storms, both wind and water, rain events. So it doesn't really matter what pole you're looking at, northern or southern. So if you think that you're going to get some sort of magic bailout from Australia that's going to, take off and say, hey, we're going to give all this extra exported food out to the world because I know you in the northern hemisphere can't grow it. You opened up with the show talking about the export restrictions out of Argentina, and how many other countries are going to follow suit, excuse me, right at the end of the year when they really realize that, everything is getting a little tighter. So we can't rely on the world like we used to any longer. And we can't rely on the climate either. So then where does that leave us?
Yeah, it is, because the currencies are going to get, our people aren't going to trust the currency moves either. So, they're going to demand hard asset kind of trade balances. And so it's going to be really interesting to, to see where this goes. Look, Russia has export bans on wheat right now too, or at least export controls, not just for that, but also for gasoline. People don't realize, all our nitrogen fertilizers come from natural gas. So the Biden administration trying to limit the fracking in the United States is basically eliminating our ability to create fertilizer here as well.